previewing the division all week long. And if you look at the AFC North odds, as they sit at BetMGM, the Ravens are plus 150. Bengals are plus 185. Browns 3-1. Steelers 9-1. I really, really like the Baltimore Ravens at plus 150. I'm big on Lamar Jackson this season. I'm big on a bounce back spot for Baltimore after what they went through last year, being so very injured. Even Lamar Jackson was limping around on a bum ankle at the end of the season. And just a few weeks ago, the Ravens, Bengals, and Browns were all tied at the top at 3-1. Now we're starting to see some separation, and Baltimore is the favorite, so I'm not alone here.
Right. This kind of sucks if you're on the Ravens and you have not placed this bet already, because the odds have steadily moved in the Ravens' favor. Clearly, a ton of people are on the Ravens, and when a lot of people are on the same team, it makes me a tad nervous. But listen, all the factors are pointing to the Ravens in this one, just because looking at how decimated this team was last year, their running back room was completely scratched out on the depth chart. J.K. Dobbins was a bright, young, exciting running back before he got hurt, and somebody who absolutely gashed my Titans. So I know that name very well. And if you're an Ohio State fan, you probably know it too. But also looking at Lamar Jackson, he didn't play part of the season. And this is still a team that was contending down to the final game of the season. I believe it was the Steelers that knocked them out and sent them home at the end of the regular season. So if they can contend, especially when their secondary was absolute garbage. This is a team that normally the secondary is very good, where they have a ton of talent, and it's extremely hard to throw against this team. Last year was really their weakness. So once they get some of those guys back on the secondary, it should be a much different team. And we see that. All the money's coming in on the Ravens. Yep. And it's hard not to see the Ravens here, especially when you're led by a former league MVP in Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, remember, was it 2 or 3 games last year? I know at least of a couple, if my memory serves, where, remember, the Ravens went for the win. They're big on analytics, and they went for the win, going for 2 on 2 of the exact same plays, I believe, and failed both times. So if those convert, even with those injuries, they probably have a couple more wins on their ledger. And I really like John Harbaugh as a head coach. That defense will be strong. I like the Ravens as a play. When you look at win totals, the Ravens lead the way at 10.5. It's juiced to the under, minus 125. The Bengals sit at 9.5, juiced to the over, minus 125. Browns are off the board because of the whole Deshaun Watson situation. And the Steelers sit at 7.5, minus 110, both sides. Does anyone intrigue you there?
I'm actually wondering why the Ravens win total is so low. Just because we've seen it. The Ravens normally are at least a good regular season team. The Ravens are the kings of beating up on bad teams. They're the team that's like beating, the Jets 42-0. And also looking at their schedule, it's actually pretty soft. They have the 23rd hardest schedule, which means they are one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. So I'm a little befuddled by the juice on this one being to the under. So I think I would take a look at the over 10.5 wins. It's a pretty high total, but still, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier. You should give John Harbaugh some credit. And I think that's kind of built into some of these teams in the AFC North, where Mike Tomlin deserves a little bit of a nudge towards the over just because of the past experience we've seen with him. He's never had a losing season. And then looking at the Ravens with John Harbaugh, this is not a team that's installing a new system or any of that nonsense. So I think you get the little extra nudge because of the coaching in this one.
So when you mention the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, and that's been well documented, never had a losing season. This year, they are favored to finish last in the AFC North at 9-1. Their win total again, 7.5. It's minus 110 on both sides. So essentially, you're flipping a coin here. I'm almost tempted to take the over just because I trust Mike Tomlin so much. And they have Mitch Trubisky. They have Kenny Pickett. At some point, I think Kenny Pickett takes over. But they did a nice job during the offseason of solidifying their defense. And I do think whoever starts at quarterback, it will be an upgrade from Big Ben, who was completely washed last season. So I might put a little bit on the Steelers over 7.5 just out of principle, out of respect for Mike Tomlin.
I thought this too, and then I looked at their schedule, and I was physically trying to count the wins, and I'm not sure if they're there. They're going to have to beat a couple teams that they're not supposed to beat, and they're going to have to beat every single team that they're supposed to beat. And, maybe it swings that way, where the Steelers are actually a better team this year, because you've got to remember, Ben Roethlisberger did not bring much to this team last season other than just his namesake. Of course, he is a future Hall of Famer and a quarterback that at least can lead your team to a bit of success, but he's not getting the ball down the field. So it was a team completely inept when it came to explosiveness. So maybe it's a team that if we just get mediocre quarterback play from either Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky, who, by the way, has led his team to the playoffs before when he was with the Bears a long time ago, I think this is a decent Steelers team. I don't think I am playing this, but I don't think I would be playing the under. I think I would give the gentle nudge towards the over here, even though I do think their schedule is pretty difficult.
Well, coming up at the top of the hour, almost everyone is back in action on Friday in baseball. I'm looking at you, Twins and Tigers. We'll look at a near full slate in the majors and go in the rotation. She's Chelsea Messenger. I'm Michael Jenkins. This is the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. If you're listening to us as you're driving to work, we appreciate it. In fact, our buddy Kyle just tweeted us. He's listening as he's driving to work. But on your drive home, you should be listening to You Better You Bet with Nick Costas and Ken Barkley. They give you the latest odds and insights before the games get underway. It is all on BetQL and all available on the Odyssey app. If you go to the BetMGM site, of course, you don't have to just bet on teams. You can bet on individual honors. Is there anything that you like when you look at player props?
I think I would lean towards Joe Burrow going over his yardage total. It is not posted yet over at BetMGM, but I think across the way it is, I forget the number, but it's a number that I do like for Joe Burrow, just because you're talking about a quarterback who now has a full offseason to fully prepare for the season without rehabbing an injury. And you're looking at a skill set for the offensive scheme for the Bengals that has some of the most talent in the NFL that I feel like people don't talk about. Look at how explosive Jamar Chase was, and look at the chemistry that him and Joe Burrow have, both being former LSU Tigers. T. Higgins was amazing down the stretch. Joe Mixon is a good backfield threat to run the ball on any given moment, also can catch passes. So I think when you're talking about offenses, I would not be surprised if we see some big numbers from Joe Burrow. And we haven't seen really a bad season from him. It's been a lot of him on the ground. So the fact that they've got some offensive line help, I think we see a big time or a big season from Joe Burrow.